In the last weeks, we set up a ring server, which acts as a web server to serve our application. We enhanced that ring server with the library Clojure that lets us define routes, which, so if the user accesses /, we get the hello world headline. If he accesses /friends from the browser, we get the there are no friends yet sad face headline. And after that, we enhanced it with the ring defaults for web applications, which adds capabilities for cookies, for session handling, and for some security headers. We delivered the static HTML tags that we wrote by hand. And this is not ideal. We don't want to do that for all the pages. We want dynamic HTML. But I'm also a big fan of server-side rendering and HTML that is rendered on the server. I'm not so keen on the single-page applications that float around now everywhere. So we added, let's switch back, we added run as a dependency, which is more well-known for front-end JavaScript rendering, but has amazing capabilities of rendering on the server side too. And we will take a look at that. So we referred to the functions defc, which defines a component for us, and render static markup, which will render the model we built with RAM as HTML. So let's define a component. We define the component main page. And we add no parameters to that yet. And now we are writing our HTML template in Clojure syntax. So let's just get back to the stream manager. Oh, Kivyu just hosted my stream in his channel. Thank you very much for this. We will see. Thank you very much. So we just want a div. And this div should have the headline we are already delivering. Because we are very thoughtful and thoroughly, we add an attribute to this div. The ID main div doesn't have to make much sense now. And although we don't have CSS yet, we add a CSS class to it. And in that div, we nest a headline. So what we are doing here and why this is nice, as already explained, we are using Clojure syntax to define our HTML. We are not writing HTML directly, because if you do that, you start with templating. Okay, you have placeholders in your HTML that you need to replace with some variables. And you have a, German word is a Medienbruch. You have a gap in the media you use, and you switch back and forth between strings, handling strings, Clojure. And this is not so good for the most templating mechanisms. Now, when we write our model in Clojure and in a structure which utilizes vectors and maps, we never leave the language. We stay in Clojure and we build everything dynamically and let it render out to HTML later. So let's check if everything works as we expect. We let me just peek to the side. We just say render static markup. Main page. We are seeing a little red warning here, unresolved symbol. This is because defc is a macro, and the syntax checker and spell checker is CLJ Condo. That's a very nice spell checker. After I made so many typos in the last 2 weeks, I decided to add this. It is integrated in Emacs via flight check, but it can't handle all the macros it doesn't know. So it assumes something is wrong here when it really isn't. So I will show you my terminal. And now we will see if everything worked. We run the whole thing again with Leiningen. In the background, it downloads RAM, and the server is started. We will take a look at Chrome again. And we see Hello World. And if we inspect what we did here, we see that we have a div. Can I size up the dev mode? Yes, too much. We have a div with the ID main div and the class main page div, and the header Hello World. And question from the chat: if I ever use cursive as a Clojure IDE? Yes, I toyed around with it. In the beginning, I tried many different Clojure IDEs. I tried cursive. I tried a light table, which was popular when I started. But in the end, I found that the Emacs tooling is the best one. It just feels, for me at last, it feels the most natural. The most learning tutorials are Emacs based, and you find a lot of useful resources there. And the fact alone that Cider exists for Emacs is just a major selling point for Emacs and using Emacs. So I got stuck with Emacs after I tried some things. And yes, it is a steep learning curve with Emacs. But as I told you in the first stream, there is an excellent resource on the online book Clojure for the Brave and True, where you can download an Emacs configuration. And there is an excellent intro to Emacs from, I guess it's Daniel Compton. And this is a really great starting point that helped me a lot. Okay, so now we have what we want, and we see something else, that RAM provided us with HTML, head, and body. So that's useful, right? It creates valid HTML for us and does not just send out the divs. So let's close those two again. And now we created a second component, friends page. We create a div here, ID main div, main page div. Okay, we have so I will switch back to Chrome again to see if everything works. The main page is still there. And the friends page is there too. But if we take a look here, these are pretty similar, right? We have an ID that wraps around it, and we have a headline. And all the other pages we will create later will also have this. So we try and nest these things. And we create some kind of template which accepts a component to be rendered in the template as a parameter. And let me just transfer that here. And we can add a second variable for the headline. So let's do it like this. We have a new paragraph. This is the main page. You are welcome. And this is the friends page. It is empty yet. And under the headline, we want to render the component. Let's see if we got it. And of course, the headline should be displayed here. So now we have a warning, unresolved symbol. This could be due to the macro. Let's show you the terminal again. We're running. And the page is hosted. And okay, forgot something there. We need to call the component and not just output the class, the function. Let's start it again. This is the main page. You're welcome. And no friends yet. This is the friends page. It is empty yet. So we have a nice mechanism on hand to create templating. We could, for example, add the page menu in the top for the template. So we have the nav. This is an unordered list. And we have two list entries, which contain a link. So you can use just all the HTML elements here like you would do in HTML. You can think of it with as HTML with square brackets instead of pointy ones. Not that simple, but you get it. So we have the href root. We have the href friends. And this will look far from pretty. Let's start it again. Still waiting. And now we have a menu on the page. An ugly one, but a working one. I won't go on for the last 10 minutes creating the nested components. I will try and prepare some more until next week. But one thing I want to show you now is how to react on input from the user. So it would be nice if the user can just pass their name in a parameter, very user-friendly in the URL. And we just can show that. That would be nice, right? So let's redo this. Let's put the function call on this side. This should still work. And in Clojure, we have the request as a parameter to the call. So the first thing, while experimenting, we hand over the whole request to the main page. And the main page takes the HTTP request too. And let's just try and output the request in the paragraph instead of a nice friendly text. Which I did while the browser was overlaying, so sorry for that. Okay, it's not starting. Did something wrong. Let's check. Response map is nil. That's the fav icon. Should be started. Now it's there. Okay, just was too impatient, as most of the time. So we want to inspect here, because I assume that the request was not outputted as a string, was not output at all. That's strange. What went wrong there? We get the request, we hand it to the main page. Maybe we need to pack it into a string function. Waiting for lining again. Logging initialized. Server started. Well, that's live. I'm not sure what I did wrong here, but I'm sure that I won't find it in the resulting 5 minutes. So if you have questions in the chat, I can get to those. Else I can tell you about why I wanted to use rum for server-side rendering instead of Hiccup. Hiccup has a similar, almost same syntax to define HTML on the server side. And for a project we're currently working on, we planned on using it, that we found rum, which is, as I told you at the beginning, more well-known for a framework which wraps React and can build reactive front ends. We saw that it has server-side rendering capability too. And the nice thing about rum is you can combine those. So if we, at some point in development, can see that server-side rendering is not enough, that we need some components using React, that we need some components using reactive programming models, we can just add it to, and the backend RAM and the front-end RAM just completely interact with each other. And this is a nice thing to enhance. And yeah, we have the opportunity. And also, RAM renders a little faster than Hiccup. At least that's what RAM says, but I have no reason to doubt them. Okay, let me check. There are no questions. If I see what I did wrong with the request. Okay. I told something which is untrue. We don't get, let me check if this was it, if I misremembered the API. I did. So I hit the browser in the overlay again. Clojure doesn't hand us the request in the route, but it hands us the, oh no, that's not it either. That's not a good day for me today. I guess that I'm missing a middleware that hands the request to us, but I can't be sure about that now, and I will have to debug that later and show the result to you next time, unfortunately. So I'm wrapping up for today. Yeah, what have we learned? We have learned what RAM is, how we can use it for server-side rendering. We have seen how we can build simple templating mechanisms with RAM, and how to create templates that pretty much read like HTML and are readable like HTML without using HTML and without having to transform HTML to something different. And this is also kind of nice for half an hour. I would have loved to show you how to accept parameters too, but I made some kind of mistake there, and we'll have to look that up later. So all I have to say is thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and have a very nice weekend, and we will see each other next week. Thank you.